Hello, Wobbly Phil here. Last month I made a video about my personal top 5 classic 1970s motorcycles and then asked you in a poll what your top 5 would be if you had an unlimited budget and space in your shed. Well, the results are in. Let's do this thing. But first, a confession. I've owned classic motorcycles all my life, including back in the 1970s when they were, in fact, modern motorcycles, and my top 5 was based on bikes that I'd owned. This top 5 consists of 5 1970s machines I've never owned, which means I'm going to have to put my qualms aside and comment on things I have little practical experience of because, well, that never stopped anyone else on YouTube ever. I'm sure you'll correct any errors or omissions in the comments. Here we go. In 5th place, garnering just 3% of your votes, is Yamaha's buzzy, smoky little 2-stroke twin, the RD350. In the 1970s, all the cool kids at school were lusting after one of these pocket rockets. As soon as they passed their motorcycle test, which here in the UK amounted to little more than riding around the block with an examiner leaping out in front of you once or twice, they'd dump their 250s and leap on one of these Japanese air-cooled parallel twins, muttering mantras like "reed valves" and "auto lube." Winding them up to 7,500 RPM, they'd shoot up to a top speed of well over 100 miles per hour in next to no time. Around 6 seconds, in fact, if you kept it in the notoriously on-off power band. And they made an amazing sound. Sadly, however, not everyone who rode them made it round the corners. In 4th place, with 13% of your votes, is another 2-stroke, Suzuki's water-cooled GT750, which earned the nickname The Kettle here in the UK. Ah, the kettle. When we first clapped eyes on one of these exotic machines, we really thought the space age had come to our tiny corner of Kent. It's got, what, 3 cylinders, but you can't see them? They're hidden in a water jacket? Behind a radiator? What magic is this? It took us all of 10 seconds to christen it the Kettle, even though we'd never heard of GT750s being called that before. It was blindingly obvious that this was some kind of 2-wheeled device designed to brew up a nice cup of tea. There weren't really water-cooled motorcycles on our roads back then, apart from some museum pieces. These days you don't see many of them about, as the Kettle Club's motto, Multi Elorum Nunc Non Videtis, translates. They make around 67 bhp, but they're heavy and not exactly rocket ships, preferring to deliver smooth, touring power. But they don't half look pretty in pink. In 3rd place, with 16% of your votes, is our first European bike, the BMW R90S. BMW's Boxer Twin is, to my eyes at least, very German. That unique design dates back to not the last century, but the century before the last century, when none other than Carl Benz himself patented the first horizontally opposed flat twin engine in 1896. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and, well, Carl Benz's mother must have loved it. But we saw plenty of these in the 1970s, and they were known for being extremely reliable. Part of that was attributed to the shaft drive, which, like the kettle's cooling, was a rare thing back then. We laughed at the thought of not having a chain to lubricate and adjust every few thousand miles, but weren't laughing as loud when our mates came back from European tours on BMWs that hadn't missed a beat. They were Autobahn mile munchers too, with a reported top speed of over 120 miles per hour. BMW are still making boxer twins today, the latest being their Godzilla-proportioned R18. Being a flash little git who likes to zip around the bendy back roads of Britain, it's not to my taste. I've heard reports of the cylinder heads suffering from gravel rash on tight corners, but those are probably apocryphal. In second place, with 28% of your votes, is another European motorcycle, the Moto Guzzi or Guzzi 850 Le Mans. The Le Mans 850 is definitely one of those machines I lusted after in the 1970s. Generally, I prefer my bikes totally naked, but even that bikini fairing was sexy in a way only the Italians know how to make bikinis sexy. I'd already been inducted into the world of olive oil, Sophia Loren, budgie smugglers and smart suits by owning a Laverda GP200, although I'm well aware that some of you might perceive that as more of an Italian donkey than an Italian stallion. Boasting 70 plus ponies from its V-twin engine, this was a bike to get the blood pumping. With a reputed top speed of 130. With only a few thousand made, they're now as rare as rocking horse shit. Ultimately, what put me off owning a Le Mans were tales of unreliability and dodgy Italian electrics, but I'm sure all that has been sorted out by careful owners over the last 50 years, it says here. As for the Velia Speedos, which only gave an approximation within 20 mph of whatever speed you were doing, I was all for those because I'd apparently got my Lambretta up to 95. But those two huge cylinders sticking out in front of my short, fat, hairy legs seemed like a recipe for third-degree burns. Which takes us to our top spot. In first place, with 40% of your votes, is the Laverda Jota. What can I say about the Laverda Jota? It's orange, it's fast, it's a bloody lovely machine. This would be my top choice, and yes, it's another Italian. Well, mostly. This was the stuff of legend. We'd only read and dreamed about the 1000cc three-cylinder miracle machine, which was then the fastest thing on two wheels as far as production bikes were concerned. It was a sensation when it was launched in 1976, attaining the equivalent of Ferrari status amongst two-wheel petrol heads. Almost 100 horses, a blistering and still mostly unheard of 0 to 60 of 2.3 seconds, and a top speed variously reported of around 140 miles per hour. It could easily out-accelerate a Porsche 911, or indeed a Ferrari in its day. The raucous love child of Italian and British parents, it was effectively a delicious dollop of cannelloni and chips.
Molto bene, Dad.
There was nothing to beat it. It truly fitted that newly minted 1970s moniker, a superbike. I have mates who own these now 50-year-old bikes, not necessarily the most comfortable or reliable things to ride apparently, but they all swear the Jota's triple howl knocks the Tridents into a cocked hat. Well, I don't know about that, but I'll let you be the judge. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then please consider liking, subscribing and commenting to let YouTube know we're doing something right here at 3 Phils. Thank you.